In chapter 1130, it was revealed that Loki killed his father, Harald, and ate the legendary devil fruit. What do you think this legendary devil fruit, passed down in the royal family of Elbaph, could be? The biggest hint lies in Loki's own words. I am Loki, the sun god who will bring the world to an end. I believe that him calling himself this is the key clue. So, here's my conclusion. The name of the devil fruit he ate is Hito Hito no Mi, model, Lunarian. The Lunarian race has a unique trait. They can keep flames burning on their backs as long as they're alive. This feature symbolizes the sun itself. In his broadcast, Vegapunk metaphorically described developing the mother flame as getting too close to the sun. The mother flame, meaning an everlasting flame, is literally the mother of flames that can keep producing fire endlessly. Lilith also mentioned that with an everlasting flame, one could even create a sun. In other words, in the world of One Piece, an everlasting flame and the sun are considered nearly equivalent. This suggests that the Lunarian race, with their ability to keep flames burning on their backs, might have been worshipped as sun gods. It could also explain why they lived on top of the Red Line in what was known as the Land of Gods. Loki also hinted that he would bring about the end of the world, which seems to tie into Norse mythology. One major aspect of Ragnarok in Norse mythology is that the world is engulfed in flames. According to the myth, the fire giant Surtur plays a crucial role in this destruction. Wielding a flaming sword, Surtur battles the gods and then sets the world ablaze, burning everything to ashes. Afterward, the world is said to sink into water. If Loki acquired similar powers over fire, it would make sense why the giant said, "If Loki is unleashed, the world will be destroyed." And why Loki refers to himself as the sun god who will end the world. Just as the mother flame has the power to awaken the destructive force of an ancient weapon that once devastated the world, the eternal flame of the Lunarians likely produces an energy of similar magnitude. In that case, Loki's statement is no bluff. This theory also ties into why Hyrudin was after the Mera Mera no Mi. His goal is to become the king of all giants. However, this giant remarked, Hyrudin may be the king's child, but implying that although he is the king's son, he doesn't appear to be the legitimate heir. So by consuming the Mera Mera no Mi, it seems he aimed to strengthen his own power and gain abilities comparable to the sun god worshipped in Elbaph, thus bolstering his claim as a convincing king. So I'm predicting that the ability Loki gained is the power of the Lunarian race. It's also hinted that there's a significant connection between the Lunarians and the giants. I'll touch on this topic in this video, especially referencing some critical mentions from Oda-sensei's interview on a Japanese TV show and the original Japanese version of One Piece. On the Dusk channel, I create analysis videos based on One Piece's official publications and the original Japanese text, providing insights that are harder to pick up from translated versions. So, don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you don't. Oh, I'd never say that. I think it's up to me to work hard and create videos that catch your eye, without needing to rely on a worn-out phrase like that. By the way, if you're looking for more in-depth content, check out another channel run by this channel's owner or my page that compiles Japanese resources on One Piece. Feel free to explore them when you have time. There seems to be a connection between the giants and the Lunarians. When I say that, does anything come to mind? When Hyrudin of the Straw Hat Grand Fleet used his technique, Gungnir, he said, "Fly." all the way to the land of the gods. Sound familiar? You might recall hearing the phrase land of the gods before. It was mentioned in a conversation between Whitebeard and Marco. Whitebeard once said, supposedly there was a land of the gods on top of the red line. Marco remembered this phrase when he saw Arbor. So it's likely that the land of the gods Hyrudin referred to was the country where the Lunarians once lived. After all, he literally launched Makvis straight upward. Now, let's take a closer look at Hyrudin's original line. He uses the term Kamigami, the plural form, meaning gods. This suggests that the giants of Elbaph don't see Nika as the only god. They believe in the existence of multiple gods. In other words, it's possible that, in ancient times, the entire Lunarian race was considered a race of gods. The most famous and controversial line from Dory is probably this one. The only thing we cannot pierce is the blood-stained serpent. This snake is understood to mean the red line. Yes, I'm sure you've heard this theory so many times it's drilled into your mind. Honestly, I'm tired of hearing it too. But what I want to focus on this time is why Dory and Brogy can't pierce through the red line. Physically speaking, the red line is a colossal continent, far taller than even the giants, so it would be nearly impossible for their Hakoku attack to destroy it. But I think there's also a religious angle here. If it's true, as I mentioned earlier, that the giants worshipped the Lunarians as sun gods, then piercing the land where their god resides would be a betrayal of their faith. Let's look at the scene where Kalgara slays the giant snake. Above this blood-stained snake stand the sun and Kalgara himself. I believe this represents the Lunarians, shining like the sun above the red line, symbolized by the blood-stained snake. And it's probably not a coincidence that Kalgara's descendant, Wiper, and Arbor bear a certain resemblance. So, why do the giants worship Sun God? First, many giants frequently find themselves frozen, and Elbaph has a tradition rooted in the Winter Solstice Festival. In Chapter 866, Mother Carmel explains, "The Winter Solstice Festival celebrates the death and rebirth of the sun. The sun makes it through the freezing winter and warms us once more with its merciful light." In other words, the purpose of the Winter Solstice Festival is to endure the harsh winter until the sun's return. This tradition in Elbaph likely emerged because giants are particularly vulnerable to the cold, which also explains their reverence for the sun god. To them, the Lunarians, who can continuously produce fire, would embody the sun itself and be seen as their salvation. In addition, the term spear is often used in relation to the giants' techniques. For instance, Hyrudin's move Gungnir references the spear of Odin, the chief god in Norse mythology. Brogy also refers to his technique, Hakoku, as the mightiest spear of the giants, passed down in Elbaph. And even Big Mom, before using her Ikoku technique, says, "Take this, the spear of Elbaph." From all this, it's clear that the spear symbolizes power in Elbaph. Now, if we look at young Arbor, a Lunarian, he's shown wielding a spear. He may not use a spear in battle today, but the choice to depict him with one in this SBS seems to underscore a connection between the Lunarians and spears. Likewise, the Shandian warriors from 400 years ago also primarily used spears. All this suggests that the Lunarians, who ignite and create eternal flames, were revered in Elbaph as incarnations of the sun god. Given this, it makes sense that Loki, after acquiring their power, would refer to himself as the sun god. By the way, in Shandora, they worshipped a sun god. But not just that. They also had gods of rain, the forest, and the earth. multiple deities. Did you know that one of the Elbaph warriors has actually mentioned another specific god before? I received an intriguing question in a YouTube comment before. Dory said there's a god of war named Elbaph in chapter 119. I'm curious what that chapter says in the original Japanese. Did Oda change his mind? Or is there still a god of war named Elbaph? Let's take a look at Dory's original line from chapter 119. This is the judgment of the god of war, Elbaph. Also, I'll share a link to an article with a Japanese translation and commentary on this chapter in the comments, so if you have time after watching this video, feel free to check it out. It also offers some great insights into Usopp's dreams. Indeed, here Dory says, the god of war, Elbaph, referring to a god by both type and name, just like the sun god, Nika. This implies that there's a war god named Elbaph. In chapter 1130, Loki also made a remark like this. This is the kingdom of Elbaph's warriors, Warland. From this phrasing in Japanese, it's clear that the kingdom's name isn't Elbaph, but rather Warland. This might mean that the warriors of Elbaph are actually fighters who swear allegiance to a god named Elbaph. However, it's also true that the name Elbaph is used as a place name, like when Kid mutters Elbaph upon arriving, or when Oimo says he's returning to Elbaph. So it seems natural to think they named the village of warriors in Warland directly after the god of war. Thank you for this comment. Just a side note, I respond to comments at random, but I do remember the regulars, so keep the interesting comments coming. And for criticism, immediate block. Just kidding. I'm finally getting used to handling all kinds of comments, so I'm working on building a thick skin. After hearing all this, you might be wondering, in the world of One Piece, the known sun god is Nika. So could the Lunarians also be considered sun gods? As it turns out, Nika and the Lunarians share an important trait. They both seem to embody characteristics of certain trees. I believe that Nika's rubbery body comes from the sun tree Eve, while the Lunarians' sturdy bodies are linked to the treasure tree Adam. Let's start by looking at the connections between the sun tree Eve and Nika. Oh, to explain that, let me slip in a little exclusive info, Dawn Dusk channel style. In an August 24th, 2020 episode of Fuji TV's Arashi Tsubo, One Piece creator Eiichiro Oda appeared as a guest and revealed his top 3 favorite scenes from the series. Anyone know what scenes he chose? The scene that landed in second place was... Yep, the one where Robin says, "Yuck, it's all sticky," and smears goo on Usopp. By the way, I'll share an article translating and summarizing Oda-sensei's comments from this TV show, accessible to free members on my page for just 1 week after this video's release, so don't forget to check it out. The scene Oda-sensei chose as his third favorite is the party scene on Verth. When this show aired, Nika hadn't appeared in the story yet, but later it was revealed that Luffy's dance in this scene closely resembles the dance he does as Nika, bringing renewed attention to it. Oda-sensei choosing the scene where Robin covers Usopp with lotion as his second favorite could mean there's an important hint hidden here. In this scene, those orange gloves gave an interesting explanation. These Yarakiman mangroves secrete natural resin from their roots. The rubber characteristic of Nika's body also comes from latex, a substance derived and processed from the sap of rubber trees. There was a time when the One Piece community was abuzz with the theory that Luffy's devil fruit might actually be the Jushi no Mi. Resin fruit. A fun bit of nostalgia. The natural resin extracted from the Yarakiman mangroves has a variety of uses. even functioning as Shaban bubbles in different situations. It's also used to coat ships and can stretch like rubber. And as many of you know, the Yarukiman mangroves are all connected to the Sun Tree Eve. Usopp even points this out, saying, "The Sun Tree Eve is kind of like the boss of the Yarukiman mangroves at Sabaody." So I believe that the rubber properties of Nika's body may come from the mysterious natural resin produced by the Sun Tree Eve. This tree might even serve as a sun god figure, given how it brings sunlight to Fishman Island. The world government has repeatedly shown its desire to erase the sun god Nika from public memory, and the same seems true for the Sun Tree Eve. In this video, I explain how the Sun Tree Eve may be hidden within Mariajois itself. It's possible that the world government concealed the tree with the Mariajois structure because it posed a threat to their control. Now, let's look at the connections between the treasure tree atom and the Lunarians. First, let's consider the origin of the name atom. Atom literally means red, and it's etymologically linked to Adama, which means red clay or red ground in a non-theological sense. In Japanese version, there's a place called the Red Soil Continent. That's right, it's the Red Line. The native inhabitants of the Red Line are the Lunarians. Earlier, we discussed the Lunarians' ability to ignite, but let's focus now on their sturdy bodies. When their flames are burning, their bodies harden, granting them impenetrable defense. Cyan even describes the Lunarians as a race that can survive in any environment. These traits closely match those of the treasure tree atom, as hinted at by Frankie. He describes it as follows: a massive tree that stands tall, unaffected, even if the people of the island launch into a cannon fire war around it. In other words, the treasure tree atom possesses an unbreakable defense and can endure any environment. Frankie almost says this as well when describing the tree. On an island ravaged by endless war. In chapter 1130, Loki calls Elbaph the strongest kingdom in the world, once engulfed in endless war, further supporting the idea that the massive tree, reminiscent of Yggdrasil, is indeed the treasure tree atom. By the way, the massive tree towering at the center of Warland has a waterfall flowing from it, which likely explains the mysterious shadow seen whenever Elbaph is depicted. I believe the waterfall holds some significant meaning, given its repeated hints throughout the story. The water flows from quite high up, so I think it would be fascinating if it actually came from a sea cloud that fell from Sky Island. Perhaps there's a hidden route from Elbaph to Sky Island. This could explain why the giants know about Sky Island, which is generally unknown to most people. And the map of Skypiea even has figures resembling giants, indicating a possible connection between the giants and Sky Island. If this is correct, then the character who fought on equal footing with the future Pirate King in Stampede might have also climbed up to Baron Terminal through this hidden route. This would mean his appearance is just around the corner. Actually, even clues about human gigantification, something Big Mom and the world government were willing to pay a fortune to achieve, were on Sky Island. As Robin explained in this scene, the reason the plants and animals on Skypiea grew so large is due to a substance in the sea clouds called pyrobloin. This environment caused this silly south bird and the forest of Jaya that flew to Skypiea to grow to enormous sizes. If pyrobloin flows from Sky Island into Elbaph through this waterfall, it could explain why not only the trees, but also creatures, and even people on Elbaph grew to such massive proportions. Additionally, pyrobloin is not only involved in forming island clouds and sea clouds, but it's also a component of sea stone. Fukuro mentions one of sea stone's defining traits. Sea stone is as hard as diamond, so those handcuffs will never come off. The knowledge of processing sea stone has been passed down in Wano Kuni. Hawkins stated, "Sea stone, now spread across the world, was born in Wano." Let's take a look at these two scenes. Both Skypiea and Wano country feature similar types of workshops. In Skypiea, they're processing island clouds, while in Wano, they're producing weapons. Just as Hawkins had weapons made from sea stone, it's likely that sea stone processing was also happening here. In other words, both involve the use of pyrobloin, which is why the processing methods appear similar. Since pyrobloin is believed to be released by volcanic activity, it's likely that this material is buried within Fujiyama. Let's look at Nekomamushi's explanation of the poneglyphs. In this scene, he describes the poneglyphs as indestructible texts crafted by the Kozuki clan. We can see what appears to be the peak of Fujiyama in the background, along with smoke that suggests volcanic eruptions. This implies that pyrobloin, when processed with high heat from magma or other intense sources, forms a super hard material. The world government officials also note a unique trait of the poneglyphs. No matter what we try, we can't even scratch it. The poneglyphs possess an unparalleled strength that resists even explosions. The trait of withstanding explosions is seen in both the Thousand Sunny, built from Treasure Tree Atom, and in Albur, a member of the Lunarian race, as previously mentioned. Just as Frankie said, Treasure Tree Atom is tough enough to resist cannon fire, so when Orochi ordered a bombardment on the Sunny, it barely took any damage. Arbor also survived a huge explosion without a scratch when Zoro stabbed him in one spot. What's particularly notable is that Arbor's invincible defense activates when flames appear on his back. Zoro even compared his flames to magma, suggesting that they produce intense heat. Just as the poneglyphs gain explosion-proof strength from the high heat and pyrobloin sourced from volcanic activity, it seems the Lunarian race may also have pyrobloin within their bodies, allowing them to significantly increase their physical durability with the intense heat from their back flames. In other words, Treasure Tree Atom, the Lunarians, Sea Stone, and poneglyphs may all contain the unique element pyrobloin, granting them extraordinary level of hardness. Based on these points, I believe that Nika embodies traits of the Sun Tree Eve, while the Lunarians inherit characteristics from the Treasure Tree Atom. This connection likely led to them being revered as gods by people. In fact, the world of One Piece has other examples of trees being treated almost like deities. One is the ancestor tree that existed on Jaya 400 years ago, which the Shandians believed housed the souls of their ancestors and revered as a sacred entity. There's also another mysterious tree, the strange white tree on Rusakaina that animals avoid. According to Rayleigh, the island once had a kingdom, suggesting it was possibly a place with deep-rooted beliefs in ancient gods, like the sun god. It's likely that lands with such old beliefs were systematically destroyed by the current world government. While a few survivors of Shandora remained, it lost its function as a city. Rusukaina, too, may have been one of these lands pushed to the brink of extinction. While the color of the Treasure Tree Atom is still unconfirmed, these trees all have a pale or white hue. There might even be a connection to Nika and Arbor of the Lunarians, both of whom have white hair. And finally, let's focus on the particularly meaningful names of these two trees, Adam and Eve. Nika and the Lunarians were born with the unique traits of these trees. and the last surviving Lunarian is named Arbor. In Christianity, Adam and Eve's children are Cain and Abel. If you rearrange the letters in Cain, you get Nika. And in Japanese, when you add the character Ru to Abel, it becomes Arbor.